Hello, my name is Dana Zook. I'm an area livestock extension specialist out of Enid, Oklahoma, and today I will be talking about small-scale poultry production. This is part of the Alternative Enterprises training session. Okay, so what the things that I will be talking about today deal mostly with small flock poultry production. So that anything from a backyard flock of 6 hens up to a small production flock of about 50 hens, and we'll mostly focus on the laying hen side. There's lots and lots of information for small producers as far as the broiler side, and I guess if there's a need for that in the future, we can do that. But today we will focus mostly on laying hens. Okay, if you're starting out fresh, getting a new flock started, you have a variety of options on where to obtain chicks or obtain birds for your flock. So you can obtain eggs and incubate and hatch them at your home. There's a variety of companies that will send you eggs. The most popular method is to obtain day-old chicks. So many people get them from their local farm store. A lot of these farm stores have them in the springtime, have a variety of different breeds. However, you can also order them through the mail from a variety of chicken hatcheries throughout the United States. Is one local one here in Oklahoma, and so that's a really good option. And so many people do that as well. And I think sometimes you have a more variety of breeds that you can choose from when you do the mail order. There is, of course, ways that you can get adult chickens, whether it's from a neighbor or a swap meet or something like that. I think today, a lot more people that have laying hens that they sell for small flock production. And so that's an option as well. Of course, when starting a flock, it's important to think about some things before you start. You want to find a hatchery that is operating under NPIP, which is a National Poultry Improvement Plan. This plan was established in the 1930s to provide a cooperative industry, state, and federal program to originally eliminate pullorum disease. Okay, but since then, their reach has been expanded to include testing and monitoring for salmonella, mycoplasma, and avian influenza, so a variety of different diseases that they focus on. And so they deal with commercial poultry, turkeys, waterfowl, backyard poultry, and game birds. They cover a variety of breeds. They just monitor for diseases, and so it's a really good thing for places that you obtain birds from to be under the National Poultry Improvement Plan. Of course, those flocks under the NPIP plan would be pullorum typhoid clean, but that's always important to focus on there. Any vaccinations prior to receiving your chicks are a plus. Vaccinations for exotic Newcastle disease, bronchitis, and Merrick's disease is very important. And then, of course, overall, buying from a reputable source. I think the internet these days gives us the opportunity to really research our sources and find those that people have really had success with. All right, so when you purchase your chicks or you get them, hopefully you're ready in advance before you bring them home. Chickens need very, very little, very basic, have very basic needs, protection from the environment and predators. They need a heat source, of course, feed and water. And I like to tell people that some of the things that we feel are very close to us, maybe the local barn cat, or something like that, is a really dangerous predator for a baby chick. So keep in mind those animals that you may not suspect beating up on your chicks or maybe taking their lives, but keep in mind those types of predators in your operation or at your place. So all of these things are all the things that chicks require at first come in a brooder, okay? So you need to have a brooder. You can either purchase one or make one yourself. There's a picture of one there, very simple. The materials needed are a box, plastic tub, or container. You want newspaper to line it, but a bedding source such as wood shavings or straw to put in there. You want a thermometer hanging at the chick's level, and a heat lamp to provide a heat source. Okay, feeder and water is of course important as well. All right, so within the brooder, it's important to mention, and I don't have this on here, that the chicks should have about 1/2 to 1 square foot per chick in the brooder. So depending on how many chicks you get, kind of depends on how big you need to have your brooder. One thing to think about. All right, so here we have a basic setup of the inside of a brooder, okay? So let me get my pointer here. All right, so when you bring the chicks home, it is important to have a chick guard, okay? So this circular area around here. This keeps those new chicks till about day 5, keeps them close to the heat source, which is right here. If you look at this is your heat lamp. Okay, that keeps them close there. Sometimes they're not real smart at first, and so they get caught in these corners and that sort of thing. But so we want to keep them close to that heat source, keep them close to their water and feed sources. All right. After the 4th or 5th day, if you feel like everything's going well, remove that chick guard and let them use the full expanse of the brooder. And of course, these guards to keep them out of the corners is helpful to keep them kind of. Sometimes they can get stuck in the corners there, but keeps them a little bit safer. Allows them to not keep piling up in the corner or something like that. So that would be your basic setup. Your waters are here in the circles here, and then here's your feeders. Of course, you wouldn't need that many. It just depends on how many chicks you have. All right, like I said, there are some important things. Newspaper is important to line it, but we really don't want it as a bedding source, okay? You could slick surfaces like cardboard or newspaper can lead to leg problems, so we want to have some bedding on top of that. Some of those recommended are pine shavings, rice hulls, or peanut hulls, depending on what you have. Straw and wood shavings are good as well. Newspaper clippings and cedar mulch should be avoided. That big cedar mulch isn't very good for those baby birds at first, okay? So temperature, we've talked a little bit about heat lamps, but baby chicks need a good heat source right at first. So right at week 1, they need to be about 90 to 95 degrees. Okay, it's really warm, but that's really what they will thrive, the temperature they will thrive at. As you can see, the temperature step down each week, and by week 6, we could be at 70 degrees, and after that, a 65 to 70 degree temperature level is really appropriate for those pullets or chicks at that point. You want to maintain that lamp about 18 inches from the litter. Hopefully you have a good heat lamp that has a temperature regulator so that you can adjust the heat depending on the chick's behavior. If the chicks are spread out, milling easily equal amounts around the brooder, then you know that that temperature is correct. If the chicks are trying to get away from the heat or away from the light, then you know that's too hot. So with the temperature regulator, it's really easy to adjust it. Now, if you don't, you just have a basic heat lamp, you may need to lower or raise it to adjust the temperature that way. So there's a variety of different ways. It just takes some getting used to using your equipment. All right, feeding chicks, very simple. Okay, so at first we want to start off with some feed in the feeder, but also on pieces of cardboard or egg flats or paper plates, as you see here on the left. This helps the chickens feel the feed, get in the feed, kind of helps them to start eating. After about the 3rd day, you want to remove these messy pieces of cardboard and paper plates and make them eat just out of their feeder. And this will help. This just helps with the transition, okay? Gets them used to the feed. As the chicks grow, we want to elevate those feeders off the ground, get them at about the top of the wing height so that they're not playing in the feed, they're not standing in it. Of course, it won't keep them all from standing in it, but it just will avoid a lot of messing in the feed and that sort of thing. Helps save a little bit as well. Okay. So as your chicks get older, after about, I don't know, 6 to 8 weeks, you probably will be thinking about putting them in the their main living quarters. Okay, so depending on the environment, of course. So we need to think about the nutrition of those chicks. What will they need as they're growing older? If they're laying hens, you may be able to get a transitional laying hen ration as they transition before they start to lay at about 6 months. But we need to know the nutrients of concern: protein, energy, vitamins, and minerals. A variety of these feed sources are grains, of course, corn, lots of different sources. But grains are very low in minerals, and so vitamins and mineral supplements are very necessary. A good balance of all of these ingredients is very important, and you can get that through a well-balanced stacked ration from your local retailer. Lots of people don't, many people, excuse me, not very many people blend their own rations for chickens. It's just really a lot easier to get your ration from a local retailer where you know it's balanced and specific to the type of bird that you have. Okay, whether it's a laying hen or a broiler or a chick or a pullet in between laying and being a chick. So very important there. Your other feed options that I've pulled up, other things that people feed chickens are scratch, which is a combination of whole rolled corn, milo, oats, and wheat. It's just a blend of grains. Kitchen waste, they're a great source to get rid of kitchen waste. There are some things you shouldn't feed them, so make sure you do your research there. And then plant waste. Lawn clippings are great as long as they're pesticide and herbicide free. But these are all treats, okay? They should not be the full focus of the diet, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. Here. So I'm not going to go through this specifically, but for those of you who really are interested in nutrition, this chart gives you a rundown of the protein, calcium, phosphorus, fat, and fiber necessary to chickens of all ages, from baby chicks all the way to laying hens. Okay, so it's good to have it in mind what you will need for your specific bird. Okay. So, like for instance, laying hens need about a 16 to 18% protein, 3.5 to 4% calcium, and so on. So, like I said, a lot of those sacked feeds from retailers will be specific to the bird in question, whether it's a laying hen or a pullet. And it's good to kind of have an ideal so you can look on there and make sure that it is the correct nutrition for your animals. And to get a more detailed nutrition kind of update, this link here at the bottom through University of Georgia has a great summary of all of these. So be sure to check that out if you have some more detailed nutrition information. It's a great summary. All right, so how much will these chickens eat? We're talking about feed right now. So a young chick from hatching to laying age, on average, will eat about 1/10 of a pound a day, so a very tiny amount. So over that amount of time until she's ready to lay, about 5 to 6 months of age, she'll eat 13 to 15 pounds, he or she, excuse me. And so that gives you an idea of the feed that you'll need, the kind of investment that will take to feed these birds to get them started. So a laying hen will eat about 1/4 of a pound per head per day, depending on the season, environment, and consumption will decrease and increase depending on the season. Like I said, summer, it's hot, they may not eat as much, where in the winter they're trying to kind of maintain their body weight in the cold, may need a little bit of feed at that time. So that gives you an idea of consumption rates for these hens. And like I said before, and I'll say it here, as far as mistakes in feeding, some people don't realize that you need to feed chickens feed them ad libitum. So they need free choice feed at all times, okay? So chickens really regulate what they need. We don't need to be concerned typically of them getting too fat. So if you're providing them the correct ration, they will really need that at all times and will eat that amount if given the chance. All right, so kind of jumped forward there, but mistakes in feeding. So sometimes people feed the wrong feed. You don't want to give your young birds a layer ration. Don't give baby chicks a laying ration. Don't mix scratch grains into a complete commercial ration, it really dilutes the nutrients. And like I said before, scratch, kitchen scraps, lawn clippings, those are treats. Okay, it's from a nutritional standpoint. And they should account for no more than 10% of the total diet. So now that you know really what total diet they will eat, it's really a tiny, tiny amount. So keep that in mind as you feed your chickens. If you're feeding a lot of extra stuff, your birds may not produce to their full potential. Okay. Okay, so water. Water is very important, as in all animals and humans and everything. So it's the most important ingredient in their diet. Water makes up about 70% of their total body weight. And if you're doing laying hens, 65% of the total weight of eggs is water. So if you've got a hen that's really producing a high amount of eggs, maybe an egg every day for a period of time, she's really needing a lot of water to keep up that the stability of the egg. Okay, so their water intake is very important just because they have a lot of dry feed. They eat dry feed, excuse me. Chickens have no sweat glands, and so water is important to help with the rapid respiration in the air sacs in the lungs. Okay, so they don't sweat. They're not able to cool themselves that way. They cool themselves through water intake. So especially in the summertime here in Oklahoma, it's just very crucial to provide them with water. So I know a lot of people do chores in the morning. In the summertime, we need to make sure at night also that those drinkers are filled up. A laying hen will drink 25% of her daily water need in the last 2 hours of the day. So you've got to make sure that that's there. That water helps her regenerate and stay cool at night, kind of cool off before the heat of the next day. And so a rule of thumb, maybe to give you an idea of what they drink, is they will drink, no matter chicks or hens or whatever you're talking about, will drink it's twice as much water as the feed they eat. Okay? Kind of gives you an idea there. All right, so for those of you who are very new to poultry production, others will know this, but there is no rooster needed if you're just wanting to produce eggs for eating or for sale. So, a lot of city ordinances do not allow roosters, but that's not a problem if you're just wanting to produce eggs. Now, if you're wanting to produce eggs, fertilize eggs to produce more chicks, you do need a rooster for that. So it just depends on what you're trying to do. So if you are indeed just producing eggs, when will those hens begin laying? All right. So 18 to 20 weeks of age is when you can expect them to begin laying, which is 5 to 6 months. They can continue 5 to 10 years. I don't hear a lot of chickens that are living to 10 years of age, but it all depends on the environment they live in. What is their egg production? Lots of different things. They will typically be fresher and produce the most in the first 2 years. Another thing that will affect the time that they live is how hard they're pushed to produce. Okay, so for those of you who are aware, you know that light is critical for egg laying. So in times of the year, wintertime, when the day length is the shortest, lots of hens will either slow down production significantly or stop, just because there's not enough daylight for them to be able to produce. They will have their peak production during the summer. It is possible to increase the day length by using some artificial light, but then again, the harder you push these hens, probably you'll get a lot of production at first and they will not last as long. Okay, so just go on that thought. That time at which they decrease egg production when the day length shortens is typically the time when they go into what is called a molt. Okay, hens will lose their feathers and replace new at each molt. It's a regeneration of the egg producing organs in their body. Egg production during this time typically ceases. And depending on the breed and depending on the bird, it will occur 1 to 2 times a year and usually last probably 2 months. Okay. So some people have questions as far as, well, is my bird molting or is there some other problem? Do I have a parasite problem? something like that. Well, keep in mind how a typical molt goes. They will start losing their feathers from their head, go to the neck, breast, body, and then end in the wings and tail. If they're not following that typical progression, then likely they have some other sort of problem. Maybe it's stress, or it could be some sort of parasite. So keep that in mind. Molting is good for birds. They can look kind of ugly, as you can see here, but it is really good for their cycle. We're good for the rejuvenation for their next egg laying cycle. All right, so we'll transition into eggs, okay? So some of this talks a little bit about eggs and the construction of your house. Make sure there's enough suitable nesting boxes for your birds, but you only need about one nest for every 5 hens, and a variety of things can be used as nesting boxes. Old buckets, boxes. They don't have to be the traditional nests you see in the store. It can be anything, okay? Fill the nest boxes with clean bedding. This helps reduce breakage and keep the eggs clean. It's not for a comfy place for the hens to sit. It's to reduce breakage when that egg is laid. We want to collect eggs at least once a day, especially during the summer. This helps with food safety if we are selling those eggs, but it also helps them stay cleaner. We don't want a bunch of eggs dropping on top of each other, breaking eggs. That's a bad thing in the hen house. Roosts, we want to, as far as in the area of the nest boxes, we want to make sure roosts are placed away from the nest boxes so they're not, the birds aren't allowed to defecate on top of the eggs. That's really not very sanitary. And so if you want a roost in your hen house, be aware of that. But remember, they're not essential in the hen house. If you have a very small one, you don't need a roost necessarily. Okay, keep that in mind. Continuing on with the egg topic, for those of you who are selling eggs, there's a big debate out there, and there always has been. Do you wash them or don't you wash them? Really, from a food safety standpoint, you can wash the eggs gently in water that is similar temperature. But if they're really dirty, throw them out. If you've got a really dirty egg, there's probably no way you're going to get it completely clean. So throw it out, get rid of it. We don't want to use soap or anything because of it can be soaked into the egg and cause the egg to taste bad. And so we want to avoid using cleaning agents. As a sandpaper can be used to clean small soiled spots if we do have some rough spots, but if things are really dirty, I would just suggest getting rid of them. As far as refrigeration, some people have some different ideas as far as whether eggs need to be refrigerated or not, but as far as food safety goes, we would recommend storing eggs at 45 degrees Fahrenheit as soon as possible. We don't want them to sit out at room temperature very long. Use clean egg cartons and store them on the refrigerator shelf rather than the door to keep that temperature consistent. Store the eggs large end up and used within 45 weeks of laying. So we've got a long time to use those eggs after they've been laid. So today I'm not going to get really into the health side. We could spend hours on chicken health, bird health, but I want to give you some sources of information. Of course, your local veterinarian is your first line of defense with a health question for your birds. If they're not really up to snuff maybe on chickens, your local county extension office typically will have some information for you. But I have given you some links here as far as some of the most common questions, most common issues as far as health goes for chicken flocks. There's a link to coccidiosis, parasite control, and that includes both internal and external parasites, small flock biosecurity, as well as new veterinary feed directive guidelines for antibiotics in livestock feed. If you're needing to treat chickens for a specific illness, that'd be important to be informed about. And that one on the bottom about the veterinary feed directive is a really good video, and I encourage you to go look at that if you're not aware of the new guidelines for antibiotic use in livestock feed. All right, just to finish up, here are the housing requirements, okay? So houses don't have to be fancy. There are some cool ones out there, some really elaborate houses for chickens, but they can be just about anything. We want to remember, no matter what we're using, that we need vents in our hen house to allow circulation. Um, Both in the winter and the summer, it's very important for that house to have some good air movement in that. The size of the house should be inside should be 1.5 to 2 square feet per bird. So about a 4x4 hen house will keep 6 laying hens very comfortably. That's a good backyard size. And then if you have a run for your birds, you want to allow 8 to 10 square feet per bird, so they have enough room to move around and do that sort of thing. So remember, just you can use a variety of anything. I've seen dog houses being made very elaborately into a hen house. So there's a variety of things you can use. Just make sure you meet those minimum requirements. That is about all I have. I want to direct you to a more detailed fact sheet by OSU on backyard flock production. That's at that link there. And if you have any other questions, extension.org is also a very good source of poultry information. Contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.